Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. Humza Yousaf seems to have rolled back somewhat from his claim that the buck stops here, because it's quite clear that the buck has got no intention of stopping anywhere near Humza Yousaf. He refuses to take responsibility for the Rutherglen loss. And no, this isn't about Rutherglen, it's about Humza Yousaf and the blame game that he gets into when things go wrong. Well, of course, having lost Rutherglen, he has to reach out and look around to see if there's something he can blame. And he's saying it is the police investigation into the party. He's saying that that was the one thing that people kept coming on the doorstep and saying. And that's strange because during the campaign, Katie Loudon was asked about that. Is it an issue? And she said no. She said it was the cost of living crisis that was the main thing. Nobody, she said, had even mentioned the investigation or Nicola Sturgeon to her. So one of them's lying, or possibly both of them. Now I think about it, it's possible that they're both lying. Yes, people were mentioning it, so she's lying, but it wasn't the main cause of the defeat, so he's lying. So what is the main cause of the defeat? Well, it's obvious. People are wising up to the SNP. But we'll look at this article, see why he is trying to shift the blame, and see why he's blaming it on the police, of all people. Here goes. So, Humza Yousaf says police probe into SNP finances caused a by-election loss. So it wasn't his own ineptitude, it wasn't all the failures of every policy he's got, it wasn't people rejecting the gender thing, it's none of that. No, it's purely because of the police who are investigating the previous regime's leaders for possible criminality, embezzlement, fraud, etc. He's in denial, isn't he? He absolutely is in denial. Anyway, the First Minister has vowed to rebuild trust in the SNP in the wake of a fraud investigation that's seen his predecessor Nicola Sturgeon arrested and questioned by police, which of course we've covered a million times. Humza Yousaf has admitted for the first time that the SNP knew they were unlikely to win the by-election after voters kept bringing up the ongoing police investigation into SNP finances, which is, at variance at what Katie Loudon said. Because obviously, as I say, she'd always denied that this was the case, and now he's saying it was. Writing for the Sunday Mail, the First Minister said that trust had been lost as Rutherglen and Hamilton West went to Labour by more than 9,000 votes. In his most honest assessment yet, it's got to be his most honest assessment yet because he's never been honest in his life. He said the impact of the ongoing criminal probe he inherited as party leader, and he said he laid bare that the fact it was the issue came up time and time again on the doorstep. He said the Rutherglen and Hamilton West by-election was a big disappointment for the SNP. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. But he must be used to disappointment by now. Everything he does fails. He must be absolutely fuming that nothing works. But he must be used to it as well. Anyway, the circumstances, he said, could hardly have been worse for us, triggered by a recall petition because of the lockdown-breaking conduct of my party's MP. He said that, and the police investigation into the SNP finances came up time and time again on the doorsteps. While we're probably never going to win, the scale of the result shows that we've hard lessons to learn. I think the scale of the result shows more that people have learnt some pretty hard lessons and they're not prepared to put up with the crap coming from the SNP anymore. That's what people are learning. It's not your party. I mean, it's always that thing, we didn't get our message across. But in actual fact, yes, you did get your message across. It's just people rejected your message. He said, I'm determined to do this to, push the trust back up. He says, because that's part and parcel of effective leadership. And of course, he's talking about effective leadership. And we saw yesterday in the video that Mary Black threatened, gave an ultimatum, in fact, that if her chum wasn't put on the selection list, she would quit there and then. And of course, if there was good and effective leadership, he would have just phoned her and said, I will not have an ultimatum put to me. Please resign with immediate effect. And that would have that would have shown, first of all, that he was a good leader, that he was even a leader, rather than even a good one, But it would have shown, it would have cemented him as a leader. But instead, he caved. He let it go on. He did nothing. And she won. And that only shows that no one in the party has got respect for him, and that nobody in the party sees him as a leader. He is weak. He is a seat warmer. He's not the man for the job. Anyway, he went on. To rebuild trust with voters who didn't come out for us last Thursday or have moved away from the SNP, we have to understand how, why and where the trust has been lost. That means we must listen. But it doesn't mean we need heed only the loudest voices. And yet, first of all, you rarely listen. And when you do, you only listen to the loudest voices. You never listen to the most voices. You listen to the loud, shouty ones over gender recognition. But they are a tiny, tiny minority. But they are the loudest, and that's the ones you bend the knee to. Rather than bending the knee to the vast majority of people who reject that policy. And it's not just that policy. It's virtually every policy. Because ultimately, if you were to do it by the number of people rather than the loudest voices, you'd basically do none of the Greens' policies. And yet, effectively, you have a Green government and a little yellow dog wagging its tail happily behind, going, yeah, we'll do that, you're in charge, you're the Greens, you're the greatest. Because you've got no ideas of your own, and you only listen to them. And yet what they propose is so destructive, and it doesn't help the people of Scotland. So the claim that you listen to all voices, utter crap. The by-election was triggered after Margaret Ferrier was ejected from the seat. We know that. And then, of course, there was the long, drawn-out process trying to get rid of her. They got rid of her. They've had the election done. So that's all done and dusted. Scottish Labour leader Anna Sawar said the result has turned Scottish politics on its head, and it will be remembered as the by-election where things fundamentally changed. And then he goes off and does some politicking for the Labour Party. And we don't care. Political analyst James Mitchell, a professor of public policy at Edinburgh University, warned that the result needs to be a wake-up call for the SNP. He said the problems have been building up for some time. It has. It's been sitting like a dam, and it's been filling and filling and filling, and the dam has broke, and it's all coming through now. And it will destroy everything in the SNP in its wake, we hope. More and more comes out. There's another scandal today, which I'll go into in another video. It's constant stream. It's a constant stream. That dam has broken. And people have seen for the first time that they're not invincible, that they are indeed vulnerable and they're weak, and that they can be kicked out of office. And that is what is going to increasingly happen, I think. It's going to be very dodgy time. I don't see Humza Yousaf lasting too much longer. I think if he makes it to the end of conference without a challenge, I think he'll have done well, but I foresee a challenge very shortly, some way or another. And the scandal I'm going to talk about in a future video today is her, which we will address shortly. But yeah, they're done, they're dusted, they're toast, effectively. People have seen what's going on. People are completely turned off. Not just SNP, I think, but a lot of just generally off politics because of the antics of people like him and, of course, his predecessor and her little coterie of kiss-arse hangers-on. Not that he hasn't got his own kiss-arse hangers-on, of course he has, but they tend to be the same bunch, really, don't they? They're all cut from the same cloth. And that's a shame for Scotland. Anyway, I shall stop there, come up and we'll round off the video. So there we are. It's the police. It's not a weak and ineffective leadership. It's not a party riven by civil war. It's not all the sex scandals. It's not all the criminality. It's not all the general disappointment that everything they try to do is a failure. It's not disillusionment with the fact that they're not listening to the vast majority of people. It's not the fact that every policy seems designed to fail and designed to be expensive as it fails as well. It's none of that. No, it's simply that the police were looking into them somehow for some reason that he's not prepared to admit. Self-delusional and at great cost to the country, I think. And it's very sad that that's the case. And the sooner he goes, the better. And in general, the sooner the SNP go in total, the better. Unfortunately, you've got that for another sort of 2.5 years or so. But in the interim, can we have someone in charge of the SNP who's not completely insane or weak? Anyway, thank you very much for listening. Can you please hit the subscribe button? Please hit the like button. Help the channel through. We can bring you more of the same, and we do have, as I say, a big story coming up. Well, not a big story. It's a follow-up on an existing story, but it's big in terms of why is this woman standing? The one I pointed out there, Tracy Carragher. So keep an eye out for that one later today. Until next time, stay safe, stay well, and keep fighting the good fight. Thank you. Goodbye.